Hi, welcome to this channel on magnetic energy principles, technology, applications. This video is about magnetic energy and the coming pole shift. There is no coincidence that the poles have been moving and their movement has been accelerated over the last few decades. And that is partly related to the pollution on this planet, specifically when we started conducting atomic testing and exploding atomic bombs. We awoken the whole galactic neighborhood, and now we are under the microscope. And what's happening right now is being very carefully orchestrated. This could be called a surgical operation on planet Earth and the orchestrating of the pole shift happening. So let's just review some quick basics here from the magnetic energy model. So we have the geophysical poles, what people think of as what they're called as the Earth's axis, the rotation of the axis, the tilt of the Earth. These are all magnetic energy expressions, and they all have these circuits. These are magnetic energy circuits that have very specific pulse rates and magnetic resonance signatures. The geophysical pole, or the rotation of the Earth, along with the slant to the axis and our movement around the sun, is very highly connected to the solar, if you will, the solar magnetic energy pulse gravity circuit. And so the vortices that come through the Earth for that particular expression are locked in to the solar system gravity circuit. So that's a pretty stable configuration that may wobble a bit here and there, but over time that is a relatively stable configuration. So now when we compare that to what people call the magnetic poles, which are basically where the compass points and how those are shifting rather quickly, that is a more specific expression of magnetic energy. It has specific pulse rates, it has specific resonance signatures, and as we've talked about before, you can have multiple magnetic energy systems overlaying each other and they still function quite beautifully, and they don't really interrupt each other. So like you can have our overall gravity circuit through the ionosphere to the center, to the interior of the Earth, not the center, to the interior of the Earth. And that's a different expression than, say, the lunar gravitational system that is a locking vortex between the Earth and the Moon. And that also is different than the geophysical and the magnetic poles. But the thing that's interesting, though, from a magnetic point of view, when you have some similarity in magnetic resonance signatures, then there is a little bit of overlap. And so the geophysical magnetic pulse rate is an all-encompassing pulse rate that has the ability to interact with everything around it, essentially. And depending on the location of a vortex and the speed of a vortex and the corresponding magnetic resonance signatures of a vortex, they can interact. And so you have this situation right now, and we've had this for quite a long time on this planet, where the quote, the magnetic poles are closely related to the geophysical poles in terms of their location. So that orchestration of those slowly moving away is tied to a lot of things. The magnetic poles influence pretty much all life on this planet and a whole number of systems that are involved in this planet. And those poles are well known to shift at fairly regular intervals, but I guess we could say we're long overdue for a shift. But this shift is interesting because it's being exacerbated by human technology and human influence. So, and this shift, what's been happening so far, just to kind of keep you updated, if we can do that, try to act like we can keep you updated. So we've been preparing, and it's been kind of this process of preparation over the next few years, and as the next solar cycle comes online, this process could get significantly more intense and get to the point where we actually have some serious magnetic pole shifting. And that may be quite troublesome for a lot of people, and maybe preparation is in order. But it's also, though, something that's being very carefully orchestrated because there's a lot at stake, and that this planet cannot be allowed to go into complete disaster mode, especially when you have hundreds of nuclear power plants that could go offline and cause a big nuclear mess, and that type of radiation feeds into magnetic streams that go into their solar system. So all of that has to be carefully regulated and controlled. And so there's a lot of attention happening around our planet right now. But the cool thing about the magnetic pole switching is it allows that system to essentially separate more, so there's less influence by the geomagnetic system. And so as that happens, that allows that magnetic pulse rate to then shift to in the sense that it can increase dramatically, and that influences pretty much all life on this planet and consciousness on this planet. So that this magnetic pole shift is directly related to a shift in consciousness. And that's kind of how that system works. Right now, they're so closely connected, the magnetic poles and the geophysical poles, the magnetic circuits, that there's an influence that kind of keeps that magnetic energy, that the magnetic poles kind of at a lower vibration. And so you've got this situation on our planet right now where the vibratory rate isn't as high as it could be, as high as we would like it to be, and that shift will help, this coming shift will help rectify that situation. And so just kind of prepare for that if you can, in terms of whatever preparation that you think is necessary. It should not be catastrophic, but it should be a significant switch. That is a very important process that needs to take place on this planet. So, along with that, we are looking at shifts in technology and then shifts in consciousness and the whole system kind of going into a breakdown and hopefully then a rebuilding of something that is much more enlightened than the current system. And you can see, like, even in meditation, when you go into this process, that we can influence the vibratory rate around ourselves, and we can increase our own consciousness and our own vibration to some degree. And certainly the more energy and that we put into that, we can certainly impact that. But the vibratory rate for consciousness on this planet right now supports a lot of those. Let's put it this way, it's easy for people to stay in a low vibratory rate right now with what's happening on the planet, but that will become much less easy to do after the shift. So think about like the universal consciousness, universal light and love. Those are very high vibrations, and any type of low vibrations, such as like fear or it could be guilt or jealousy or anger or hate, and all these things that are happening on our planet right now, those are not supported at a universal level, because the source of energy for our existence is an extremely high, clear vibratory rate that is more neutral, it's more loving based, it's more, think of all the positive things that you can possibly embrace, and then those high vibratory energies. So what with the pole shift, our planet will start syncing up more with that high vibration, and instead of it being such a step down transformer, if you will, of magnetic pulsing, it will be less of that, and we will get a clearer, basically a clearer channel of universal energy, and that magnetic field will be more independent from the geophysical field, and that will allow that field to then operate more clearly on its own at a higher vibratory rate. So, with that said, the coming pole shift is very important to what's happening on this planet, and there are some signs that you can look for or that are already happening that are indicators of this. And so you may see like a general upward trend of intensity in storms. And that's partly because of with ionosphere, with the outer edge of the ionosphere, the outer rim of the ionosphere, that controls essentially the balance of the Earth's energy field. And when that system's out of balance, which it is right now, it will create a lot of vortices around the planet that are designed to help achieve balance. And so as the system does that, things like tornadoes or hurricanes will form. And so there, you may see this general upward trend of those. The other thing that you may see is an increase in volcanic activity, earthquake activity, and that's part of that same process as that energy is attempting to create these incredibly strong attract fields and a balancing. The Earth is trying to pull off a balancing act, but that will end up resulting actually in the poles shifting. And you also may see like high ionospheric lightning, and as that increases, and so that's like an high energy ionosphere like discharge that's happening. And again, the attempt of the system trying to balance and creating incredible draws of energy. So these type of signs, there could be, and this is in the news quite often if you pay attention to this kind of thing, but essentially like there are atmospheric shifts that cause explosions, if you will, or sound vibrations that can basically cause loud explosions of sound. And that's, again, it's a process of balancing, a type of balancing and redistribution that's taking place. So as these things tend to increase, we're getting closer in the next few years, we're going to see some pretty dramatic changes. And so just be aware of that. But know that this is a very important process that we absolutely need to go through for the transformation that's needed on this planet. So that's a very, very positive thing in the big scheme of things. And this system of control and oppression and suppression and all of this needs to come to a screeching halt. And this ongoing conflict and these low vibratory energies need to come to a halt. And so with that said, we'll see you next time.